As US weapons stockpiles run low in the Middle East, is Trump trying to convince allies to step in with additional air defenses and support? The US president told G7 leaders that Iran is about to surrender, but reports and battlefield reality suggest the opposite. Mojtaba Khamenei has refused to back down, issuing a defiant first statement that promises continued resistance and fresh threats to US. With key allies rejecting many of Washington's requests and Iran openly defying Trump, US troops and infrastructure take hits. The details of Trump's March 11 virtual meeting with G7 leaders have now emerged, revealing how he privately sold his narrative of the Iran war to key allies. Trump told G7 leaders that Iran is about to surrender, according to an Axios report based on 3 officials from G7 countries briefed on the call. In that virtual session, Trump appeared confident about the war's outcome in private, mirroring the upbeat tone he has maintained in interviews and public remarks about finishing the job. He made this claim despite no clear signs of backing down from Iran's leadership, which continues to launch large waves of missiles and drones across the region. Trump's bold assertion was effectively refuted on March 12 by Iran's new Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei, who issued a defiant first statement instead of signaling any surrender. Roughly 24 hours after Trump's talks with the G7, Mojtaba released his first major message, praising Iran's armed forces and making clear that resistance would continue. In that statement, Mojtaba lauded Iranian forces while threatening US bases hosted by Gulf countries, urging regional governments to close foreign bases as soon as possible or risk further attacks. Notably, Trump has publicly downplayed Mojtaba's selection, calling him a lightweight in conversations reported by Axios and insisting he wants a say in who leads Iran next. G7 leaders are currently on edge over the Middle East war's growing economic fallout, with surging oil prices and shipping risks dominating their private discussions. During the March 11 virtual meeting, several G7 leaders urged Trump to secure the Strait of Hormuz as soon as possible, Axios reported, warning that prolonged closure would further damage the global economy. Germany, France, and the UK were also hesitant about the US offering any sanctions relief to Russia, fearing it would undercut the Ukraine sanctions regime even if done for energy reasons.
I would like to add, first of all, we have discussed the topic of oil delivery with the American president in the circle of G7 heads of state and government this week, and gas delivery from Russia. There was a very clear opinion from 6 G7 members that this is not the right signal. We then learned this morning that the American government has apparently decided otherwise. Once again, we believe this is wrong. At the moment, there is a price issue, but not a supply issue, and therefore, I would like to know what motives prompted the American government to make this decision. It is indeed temporary. Above all is a question of when this war will end, and with what strategy will this war be ended? These questions are not really answered either. At the moment, from my point of view, there is therefore no reason to consider military securing of the sea routes. I want to say it very clearly once again. Germany is not part of this war, and we do not want to become part of it. In this respect, all our efforts are focused on to ending the war. And exactly about this, we are talking with both the American government and the Israeli government.
Despite Allied pushback, Trump went ahead and temporarily eased restrictions, ordering a short-term relaxation of some Russia-related oil sanctions anyway. On March 12, the Treasury Department announced a 1-month waiver on US sanctions for specific Russian oil shipments, allowing stranded cargoes to reach buyers like India to ease market pressure. Notably, Axios also reported that Trump mocked UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer in front of the other G7 leaders, in line with his sometimes combative tone toward allies. Trump reportedly taunted Starmer over his initial refusal to allow the US to use British bases at the start of the Iran conflict, portraying London as overly cautious. Overall, sources told Axios that Trump appeared ambiguous and non-committal about the war's long-term objectives and timeline, leaving some G7 leaders unsure of his endgame. Meanwhile, on March 13th, the IRGC announced the 44th wave of Operation True Promise 4, describing a new round of ballistic missile and drone strikes against regional targets. The Guards claimed they used Khorramshahr, Kibar Shokhan, Fatih, Emad, and Qadr missiles in this wave, marking another heavy use of Iran's strategic missile arsenal. Iran's military also claimed to have shot down a US KC-135 refueling aircraft over western Iraq, saying it was targeted while supporting American operations. US Central Command later confirmed that 4 of the 6 crew members aboard the KC-135 had died, turning the incident into one of the deadliest single losses for US air crews in this war. The US is facing a severe shortage of air defense missiles in the Middle East, according to reports citing internal assessments and allied complaints about dwindling interceptor stocks. US forces are racing to move weapons from other global theaters into West Asia, redirecting air defense assets and munitions to shore up gaps exposed by Iran's sustained missile and drone barrages. Trump has reportedly appealed to European and Southeast Asian allies for support, pressing them to send warships, radars, and additional interceptor systems to help defend US and allied bases. However, those appeals have been met with rejection and frustration, as many allies are reluctant to be drawn directly into the war and have largely refused to provide significant new assets. Meanwhile, NATO allies themselves have come under fire in the Iran conflict, as coalition sites and trainers are increasingly in the line of retaliatory attacks. A drone strike killed one French soldier and wounded 5 others at a site in Iraq's Kurdistan region on March 12, underscoring the risks to European forces embedded with the coalition. Earlier, an overnight strike hit an Italian base in Erbil that hosts NATO personnel, destroying a military vehicle. Italy later said the incident appeared to involve a drone and caused no Italian casualties. Previously, a drone attack had targeted a UK military base in Cyprus amid the Iran war, prompting stepped-up British air patrols and air defense activity in and around the island. Turkey, for its part, has claimed that NATO defenses have shot down 3 ballistic missiles aimed at its territory in the past week, reflecting how alliance systems are now engaged on multiple fronts.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that look, you will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest news makers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the US will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry guards.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Deep dive into burning issues.
It's often said DRC could be the richest country in the whole world. It's because of what sits underneath.
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HT videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.